The topics that we cover in this particular series are the ones which are appearing in daily newspapers, how they can be beneficial for you to increase your knowledge, plus understand the topic and use these in any answer or any discussions or any other interview. Today's topics. First topic includes April GST collection rise to record 2.1 lakh crore rupees. As you know, the GST collections have been rising, but April 2024 was somewhat around 13% higher as compared to the previous year's April 2023. What are the significance? What is the reform those are required in GST? We will deal with it. Then comes Article 31C of the Constitution, part of our GS2. Then comes Eta Aquariids meteor shower, geography section, GS1. Next is student protest in the USA, and how does actually USA define these when the protests are happening in its own geography, and how does it define the protest when these are happening away from its own geography? So what is the difference? What is the hypothesis? And what is the US stand when protests are similar but geographies are different? So this is part of our GS1 and 2. So let us start with April GST collections. April GST collections were higher and at a record 2.1 lakh crore rupees. After accounting the kind of return that we provide on the indirect taxes, the collection was 1.92 lakh crore. So the total collection was 2.1, while the collection was 1.92 after accounting the returning. As you know, GST is a destination-based tax, one of the major tax reforms that India has done in the indirect tax system. India has been trying to reform its taxation system, not only for the investment, attracting investment, but also simplify the economy. If the tax structure in an economy is at a healthier rate, or it has a very good advantage, then number one, the country's economic system will prosper because investment will be higher. Number two, black money generation in an economy will be on a lower side. Because if the taxation rates are not that much particular higher, people will not try to avoid it. Rather, they will try to pay it. Third is, the market will not be a fragmented market despite being a large geography. The market will be a kind of unified market. How the GST ensured that the market was unified? Because GST reduced the fragmentation by way of amalgamation of different direct indirect taxes. Different indirect taxes were subsumed into goods and service tax. Earlier, what used to happen that if in a particular state the tax rate was say X%, then in another state say B, the tax rate was X minus 1 or X minus 2%. That was creating a different markets in India across geographies. So that actually got washed away. So we had now, after 2017, a market which was unified. So GST came into picture. What we did was GST, how our GST was different than other geographies. So let us dwell into it. Our GST was different than other geographies, number one, in the sense that we were having different rate structures in the GST, while other countries in say Singapore or Western countries, they have single structure GST. Why it was done? As you know, India is a quite larger market. Consumption pattern across geographies are different. As you know, poverty is also prevalent in our country, although the percentage has been declining, but still the per capita income levels of the economy is not that much higher. So we have to take care of those people also. Second, across the state, there is a different, consumption baskets. Suppose say one state is a manufacturing state, another state is a consumption. So there is not a particular standard or uniform pattern of consumption across the state. We are also having different structures or different rate slabs of the GST because in our country, the subsistence level of the people is dependent on the agriculture mostly. So a lot of the agricultural commodities were put in the lesser rate cycle. As you know, in our inflation basket, wholesale food production, wholesale procurement, so in that particular WPI inflation, the basket actually, has more agriculture products and fuel prices. So agriculture actually, affect the inflation at a larger manner. So we wanted not to escalate the food prices. That's why we kept most of the agriculture commodities in either 0% slab or 5% slab. So inflation actually, does not get hampered. This was one of the reasons why different rate GST was adopted in our country, and that is the structure between our GST structure and other countries. Another important difference between our country's structure and other countries' GST structure is the different manner in which different commodities are still left out of the GST system. As you know, three major items: electricity, fuel, that is petrol and diesel, and alcohol. These are not part of the GST as of now. In other countries, all these commodities are part of the structure. It was done because India is a federal country. Lot of states which were not, original state, or which were not, manufacturing states, they wanted to subsume everything, but there are other states actually which wanted to have some powers over it. That, we should be having some powers over other resources like, say, electricity, fuel, so we can generate the taxable resources. So they did not want to, leave that particular power. So a different formula was adopted in which several commodities were left out. So this is the difference between our structure and other countries' structure. What are the reforms that are being talked about? So the reforms in the GST, those are being talked about, and Vijay Kelkar Saab also, actually, the 13th Finance Commission chairman, also talked about it. So anytime, whenever you are writing answers, you should mention these topics that Vijay Kelkar, who was the 13th Finance Commission, he also advocated several reforms. One among was to have a single rate structure. Can India move to the single rate structure? Although that's a separate topic of concern, but yes, as the time passes and as the GST system matures, we can bring down the prices of or rate structure of few commodities down to a particular level, and we can increase the structure of those products which are either right now accepting 0% or 5% tax structure to a particular rate slab, say 12%. So can we return to, or can we go to one structure GST? Answer may be yes, but time we don't know. When the GST matures enough, we can do that. Number two is reform that is required is to include the leftover items, especially fuel, electricity, and alcohol. As you know, because of there are different rate structure across geographies, there is a black marketing of products. Black marketing of products in the sense that when we talk about the black marketing happens when there are different rate structures across geographies. Alcohol, petrol and diesel. Petrol and diesel is also one of the major commodities actually which is creating a unhealthy inflation cycle. So can we include this? Answer is yes, we should. But should we do without a state consultation? Answer is no. So this is the another reform that is required in the GST. Third is the GST council structure itself. Some of the state had been advocating that GST council should have more representation from the states, and centers weightage should be reduced. It's another matter of debate whether this can be done or not be done. But yes, this is another concern which the states are advocating that can that be done as well. So these are the reforms which we can bring in the GST structure. But why the larger collections are a good news for the Indian economy? Number one, when the indirect taxes are higher and 2.1 lakh crore rupees or at a record level, it means that the economy is in a healthy state. People are consuming more, so they are paying the indirect taxes more. If they are consuming more, it means the supply of the products actually will have to be ensured, so companies will be producing more. It may happen that the manufacturing of the products or supply of the services will increase, and that will itself create a virtuous cycle. That is another good thing. Third, as the country government, especially state or the union government, have more resources under its nitty, then they can spend more on the welfare policies. If they spend more on the welfare policies, it means putting more money into the hands of the people by way of employment generation or by way of infrastructure creation. demand of the economy will further increase. So that will also create a bump up for the economy. So the higher GST collection can be beneficial for the economy in this particular manner. As I also tell you, the indirect tax reform in the form of GST, there are three parts of it. Number one, the central GST. Number two, the state GST. And number third, the integrated GST. Integrated GST was somewhere around 99,000 crore. And as you know, this is the highest collected item under the GST. Second is the state GST item. And state GST item is the second ranked item, close to 53,000 crore. And the third one is the central GST item. And the fourth one is the cess. Cess that is collected is somewhere around 13,000 crore rupees. As you know, cess and surcharges are those taxes which are put additionally, and they are for a particular goal or particular stated objective. There may not be stated objective behind these also. One of the reform that is being suggested by countries, state government is that the central government should reduce or should limit itself how much cess it applies. But central government gives an argument that as of now we are paying to these states which were original or which were manufacturing states, so we are compensating them, and because we are compensating them, we require also some of the financial resources for our consumption, also infrastructure growth and other logistic cost to the GDP can be reduced and infrastructure can be further improved. So the reform another is the talk about reducing the cess item. So this is the first topic where we talk about April's gross GST taking power past 2.1 lakh crore rupees. Then we come to the second question, and that is the question of Article 31C. So while hearing a case about private property, Supreme Court asked whether Article 31C, a fundamental right, still exists or not. When it was introduced in the Constitution, what has been its legal journey? We will deal with it. So when we talk about Article 31C, this is a particular article that has been in the news because of the fight about the wealth redistribution or the inheritance tax and all those things. So when we talk about this particular article, so the talk is regarding Article 31C. Ongoing hearing of the Supreme Court to decide whether the government can acquire and redistribute private property, and 9-judge constitution bench that is led by CJI D.Y. Chandrachud asked a question of radical consequences of the constitution. Does Article 31C still exist or not? Article 31C, as you know, it protects laws that are enacted to ensure that material resources of the community are distributed to serve the common good under Article 39B, and that wealth and other means of production are not concentrated to the common detriment of the society. So that is the two things that is achieved by Article 31C. I'll again mention Article 31C of the Constitution gives protection to the laws that are enacted to ensure that material resources of the community are distributed to serve the common good under Article 39B, and that wealth and means of the production are not concentrated to the common detriment. So that is under Article 39C. When we talk about Article 39B and 39C, as you know, 25th and 26th Amendment Act actually gave primacy to Article 39B and 39C over Article 14, 15. But Supreme Court talked about that there is a harmonious relation between DPSPs, means Directive Principle of State Policy, and fundamental rights by Minerva Mill policy. But it says that judicial review is a fundamental basic structure of the Constitution, so we cannot neglect it. Now the Supreme Court is saying, does Article 31C is still valid or not? And that we will talk about. Article 39 of the Constitution lists certain directive principles of state policy which are meant to be the guiding principles for the enactment of the laws, but are not directly enforceable in any court of law. As per Article 31C, these particular Directive principles of state policy, Article 39B and C, cannot be challenged by invoking the right to equality, Article 14, or rights under Article 19, that is freedom of speech and expression. So why is the continued existence of Article 31C itself is under question that we will deal. So Article 31C was enacted by Constitution 25th of Amendment Act 1971. This was essentially framed to ring-fence an adverse court ruling in the bank nationalization case of 1970. As you know, banks were nationalized in 1970 to give the heft to the branch expansion so the properties can be protected, so the poverty can be eradicated. Article 31 see that no law giving effect to the policy of the state towards securing the principles specified in Clause B or Clause C of Article 39 shall be deemed to be void on the ground that is inconsistent with or takes away or abridges any of the rights conferred by Article 14, 19 or 31. So ongoing case in the Supreme Court talks about that the court is hearing a challenge to Chapter 8A of the Maharashtra Housing and Area Development Act. This chapter, introduced by an amendment in 1986, allows the government to acquire seized properties in Mumbai at the request of the occupant. So argument in the Supreme Court are like this. When the hearing finally began on the first day of April 23rd, the nine-judge bench seemed to agree with the center's submission that the case should be restricted to interpreting Article 39B. CJ Chandrachud said that it is very clear that the ambit of the reference to the nine judges is squarely on the subject of Article 39B. So there is a talk about Article 39B and 39C because of the inheritance and the wealth redistribution and what will be the community resources is being challenged, and because of that Article 31C gives protection to. That's why the fight over Article 31C is now being challenged. And how it will be done in the coming days, it will be ensured. Justice Joseph held that old collegium system for appointment of the judges would be revived once the 1990th amendment was struck down. He observed that once the process of substitution and insertion by way of a constitutional amendment is itself held to be bad and imperceivable and pre-amended, provisionally automatically resurface and revive. So that was regarding the NJAC Act also. So these are the few of the lines actually which I mentioned regarding NJAC Act. So let us see what happens in Article 31C. Now come the next question, and that is about what is the Eta Aquariid meteor shower and set to light up the night sky this weekend. So the Eta Aquariid meteor shower, which has been active since April 15, will peak on May 5 and 6. It comprises burning space debris moving at a speed of around 66 km per second into the Earth's atmosphere. These showers are seen in May every year and are best visible to the countries such as Indonesia and Australia in the southern hemisphere. So when we talk about what are comets, so you should know that meteor shower come from comets which are frozen leftover from the formation of our solar system. Some 4.6 billion years ago, comets are composed of dust, rock, and ice. So comets are composed of the dust, rock, and ice and orbit around the sun in a highly elliptical orbits, which can in some cases take hundreds of thousands years of revolution to complete. According to NASA Agency of America, a total of 3,910 comets are currently known, although billions more are theorized to be orbiting around the sun, beyond Neptune in the Kuiper belt, and even more distant Oort cloud. Comets come in different sizes, although mostly are roughly 10 km wide. However, as they come closer to the sun, comets heat up, and since they come closer to the sun, they heat up and spew gases and dust into the glowing head that can be larger than a planet. This material also forms a tail which stretches millions of miles also. So meteors are simply grains of dust or rock that burn up as they enter the Earth's atmosphere. This burning also creates a brief tail. Since most meteors are tiny, they completely burn up in the Earth's atmosphere. However, once in a while, a large enough meteor passes through and hits the ground, often causing significant damage. A meteor shower can be observed when Earth passes through the clouds of dust left behind in a comet's orbital plane.
So the sky lights up with small and large meteor tails as the debris left behind by the comet interacts with the Earth's atmosphere. So the Eta Aquariid meteor shower is formed when Earth passes through the orbital planes of famous Halley's comet, which takes around 76 years orbit at the Sun. While it was observed as early as 240 BCE, it was only in 1705 that astronomer Halley realized that the periodic appearances were reappearances of the same comet. Last seen in 1986, Halley's comet is due to enter the inner solar system again in 2061. Like Eta Aquariids, the Orionoids meteor shower is also caused by the Halley's comet and appears every October. So why are Eta Aquariids unique? The Eta Aquariid meteor shower is known for its rapid speed. This makes for long glowing tails which can last up to several minutes. According to NASA, about 30 to 40 Eta Aquariid meteor can be seen per hour during the peak of the meteor shower. If observed from the southern hemisphere, the number decreases to about 10 meteors per hour if being viewed in the northern hemisphere. This is due to the location of the radiant, that is the position in the sky where the meteor shower seems to come from. In the northern hemisphere, Eta Aquariid meteors most often appear as earth gazers, long meteors which appear to skim the surface of the earth. So long meteors that skim the surface of the earth are known as earth gazers. So this is what about the Eta Aquariid meteor shower, what are the comets and how does it affect? Then comes, America's own talk about, I mean, two characters of America where it is talking about the protests. As you know, when the protests happen into a different geography, America would be calling those protests actually as a symbol of democratic representation in those countries. And when they happen into its own geography, then it will be calling into a different name. And that actually represents why we should not feel that democracy is only a phenomena that occurred in the Western societies. Western societies talk about human right violation and democratic framework in other countries, but they never would want actually, their own phenomena or whatever the concerns are in their own geographies. So let us do it. So America actually is right now talking about, that somebody is saying that the colleges have gone down. Somebody is saying that the academic freedom actually has, been run down by the administration. But there has not been singular thing like, you see, whenever such protests happen in, say, France or in New Delhi, then these are the same set of modules sitting in America or in Western societies that write so many things about the Indian protests. They call it like, namesake like murder of the democracy, or, that the student protest is being run down, the government has turned autocratic. These are the kind of things actually that they write about the Indian or France or other protests. But when the same protest happen into the US geographies or other Western country geographies, then that don't call it by name. They talk about it being that, okay, this is the freedom of expression that has been given. This is the academic, intellectualism that is arising out. So we will deal with it. Violence cannot be the answer. But these are the double standards of the American people that they talk about it. Even actually, they will say that this is the effect of the left liberalism that is taking roots in the geography. Now, if we want to talk more about the Indian constitutional protection, then we will talk about little more. As we know, there is a basic structure doctrine. In our in our country, the basic structure was brought in by the 1973 amendment, 1973 decision by the Supreme Court in Kesananda Bharati case. So this basic structure doctrine actually, does so many things. It did actually, number one, gave a lot of independence to the judiciary. It also, did try to bind the executive and the legislature to certain particular amendment act only. Those acts or those amendment actually cannot violate the basic structure. Fresh among the example is the NJAC, National Judicial Appointment Commission Act, that was passed in 2015 and was ratified by half of the states was nullified and declared null and void by the judiciary itself. So when we say that basic structure of the doctrine actually makes the judiciary more independent, the answer to these kind of protest is also in these kind of things. How? Because when such kind of protest actually, and if any section of the society is not happy with the government policies, they can approach to the judiciary without any kind of hindrances or without any kind of fear or favor. As you know, lot of things, especially through PIL, has been you know has got the decisions by the Supreme Court or the higher courts which have gone against the ruling dispensation of those times. And that shows that how democracy is ingrained in the Indian society itself. Right now, if the fight is going on about the arrest of a particular chief minister, or a fight about electoral bonds, or a fight about any kind of decision, then actually, those things talk about how the democracy is ingrained into its blood itself. So the Western countries don't need to lecture us. Western countries do not need to let us know that where we are wrong or what is right. Because our democracy, we have our own footprint. Our constitution was made not because of copying it from other, but studying other aspect of the different geographies in making it habitable for our Indian system. If suppose say we are a federal country, and if did not write actually federalism in the constitution, it was also because we wanted to make sure that the Indian situation was different. At that time, India was undergoing so much of separation, religious, different turmoils, etc. So we did not do it. But do you feel that India is not a federal country? It is absolutely not. So these are the democratic, kind of freedom that we have provided under Article 21, and the kind of definition or enlargement of the Article 21 that has been done by the judiciary in India, especially Supreme Court. It is also noteworthy. You must have seen recently Puttoswamy judgment actually talked about privacy being a fundamental right. So privacy has been upgraded to a fundamental right under Article 21. Can you imagine how much Supreme Court has been giving a contribution to the democratic uplift in our country? And second thing, because of there is a Supreme Court or a High Court which are neutral enough, so the current dispensation or whatever dispensation in a state government, they will always fear that if some particularly politically biased action is taken, and if that is challenged in the Supreme Court and that is nullified, how much actually space it will give to the opposition to lambast them will always demotivate the ruling dispensation to do anything wrong or contrary to the constitution. So this is how that our democratic framework are ingrained and are attuned to our particular purpose only. So these countries which are Western countries or countries actually which they do not have anything to do with us, always lecture and make a comment about any incident that happened in our geography in a way that everything has been doomed, and only the thing that is happening in our country is just like as a doom and black and dark only. That is not the case. So you should always have that particular feeling and faith on our society and our people, that there are mechanisms which are drawn in our society only, and those rectifying manners actually always define the current state of practice in our democratic framework. We stop at this particular point of time. Thank you for listening to us. If you were able to deliver a good quality lecture, please make sure that you like and subscribe to our button. Thank you.
For more such videos, you can like the button and subscribe the channel. Thank you.